You are good to go.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. It is 7 a.m. on Tuesday, November 9th. I now call to order the 2086 regular meeting of the City of College Place City Council. Will the clerk please take roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Bobbitt.
Present, and I think it's 7 p.m.
Did I say AM?
Councilmember Cleveland.
Present.
Councilmember Peterson.
Present.
Councilmember Nyhagen.
Present.
Councilmember Selby.
Present.
Councilmember Sherman.
Present.
And Councilmember Boyle has requested to be excused tonight. We also have City Administrator Rizzatello, Finance Director Brian Carlton, Public Works Director Robert McAndrews, Police Chief Troy Tamaris, with several others from the police department. They'll be doing a presentation and promoting some staff this evening. Community Development Director John Rickard, and I see City Attorney Ree Colwell just joined us, and I'm City Clerk Lisa Neisel. We do have a quorum. We do have several other guests that will be presenting. We'll introduce those as their items come up.
Great, thank you. Now, will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you so much. It is now time for public comment. And did anyone submit a comment, or would anybody in the audience like to speak at this time?
No one that I'm aware of sent a comment. We do have one attendee on Zoom. If you would like to make a comment, you can just raise your hand. I'm guessing that that's a no, so I think we're good to move on.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on to the consent agenda, which consists of approving the agenda for today, November 9th, 2021. Approve this council minutes from October 26, 2021. Police sergeant contracts, and excuse the absence of Council Member Boyle. Are there any items the council would like removed off the consent agenda at this time?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Right, we got a first and a second. Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Right, it's unanimous. The ayes have it and the motion is passed. Okay, we have several presentations tonight, and our first one is going to be the promotion of Salvador Diaz and Dylan Schmidt to the rank of Sergeant by Police Chief Troy Tamaris. Chief, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Can everybody hear me okay?
Mhm.
Good. We got technology set up out here at the classroom at the range, so this is new for us. So tonight's a very special night. We get to promote our future leaders of our agency, and two very deserving individuals tonight are being promoted, and I'm very excited about that. So we're going to start out with swearing them in, and then we're going to individually read their resume and allow their who they've chosen, their significant others, to pin their badges on and sign their commission, and then say a couple words. So here we go. Gentlemen, repeat after me. I repeat your name. You solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear
Or affirm.
or affirm
That I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of my office
of my office
as prescribed by law
as prescribed by law,
and to the best of my ability.
and to the best of my ability.
Will support the Constitution
Will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
and laws of the state of Washington
and laws of the state of Washington
and ordinances of the city of College Place
and ordinances of the city of College Place
as a police sergeant,
as a police sergeant,
to which position
to which position
I have been appointed.
I have been appointed.
Congratulations. Lieutenant Penfield will now read the resume of Sergeant Diaz.
Salvador Diaz was born in Michoacan, Mexico, and graduated from Union Baker ESD in Melton, Freewater. As a young man, Sal became a U.S. citizen. After high school, he attended Everest College in Phoenix, Arizona, obtaining his associates in criminal investigations. Sal is a veteran who served in the United States Navy as a corpsman. In 2017, Sal was activated and spent a year mobilized with the Marine Corps as a medic. Sal began his employment with the City of College Place Police Department on July 21st, 2016. He attended Basic Law Enforcement Academy and graduated on December 8th, 2016. In 2021, Sal became a less lethal instructor. Sal was recognized as the Officer of the Year in 2020. Today, Sal is being promoted to the position of Sergeant. Sal would like to thank his family and everyone who has supported him through the years.
Hey.
I just want to thank the city. I want to thank everyone who's here for coming down and supporting us. Thank you to the LT now and Chief. Thank you everybody for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
We're now going to read the resume of Sergeant Dylan Schmidt.
Dylan Schmidt was born in Spokane, Washington, graduated from St. John Endicott High School. He attended Washington State University, where he obtained his bachelor's degree. Following his undergraduate education, he continued on to Boise State University, where he completed his master's degree. Dylan began his employment with the College Place Police Department in October 2017. He attended the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Center Basic Academy and graduated in April 2018. After completing, Officer Schmidt was sworn in as a fully authorized police officer in 2018. In 2019, he became a member of the Walla Walla Regional Hostage Crisis Negotiation Team. Dylan also assisted the local SWAT and TRT in several specialty roles. Dylan also serves as our Department Public Information Officer and assists with several other community projects. Today, Officer Schmidt is being promoted to the position of Sergeant. Dylan would like to thank his lovely wife, Deshree, his parents, Steve, and Suzanne, as well as his sister, Asia, for their continued love and support.
All right, well, thank you. I'd like to thank the city council just for the opportunity since they've gotten here. We've had a lot of doors and opportunities open. I'm very grateful for that. Thankful for everyone to be here tonight. Support goes a long way, especially in this career. So very grateful for that. We're excited for the things to come with this team. So thank you guys.
All right, Mayor, Council, unless you have any questions, I'll turn it back to you.
Chief Tamaris, I send my sincere congratulations to Sergeant Schmidt and Sergeant Diaz. Congratulations.
I want to show everybody the great family support we have down here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, they are blessed indeed.
Yes, we are. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Congratulations again, gentlemen.
I want to share my congratulations too.
Well, that was special. All right, now how do we move on after that celebration? Okay, well, Ms. Francis, you're gonna have to follow up that. So the presentation on Basin disposal on annual rate report.
Yes, I don't know that talking about garbage rates after such a lovely ceremony is an enviable position, but here we go. I have a PowerPoint and I don't know if you can see it or if I need to have permission to share my screen. What would you prefer?
I just gave you permission to share, so you should be able to do so.
Okay, so when you see a big thing that says Basin disposal on your screen, would you please just let me know? So here we go. And is it sharing?
There it goes.
Yep.
Excellent. So I'm going to take all your faces and move them to the right. So College Place, it's a pleasure to be here with you. You do not know me. I am the new government affairs person at Basin Disposal. Derek has gotten so busy that he's having to deploy some of us to do these talks, which I know you love talking with him because he's so knowledgeable, but he has done his best to train me up. So my background is I was on the Pasco City Council for 21 years. I spent 12 years on the Association Washington Cities Board, 12 years on the Washington State Public Works Trust Fund Board, and then 8 years on Freight Mobility Strategic Investment. So I am quite conversant with city issues, and I notice that you have an extremely packed agenda, so I will try to make this fairly brief. We are going to break this up into two parts. The beginning, we're going to talk about the CPI and other changes to your rates, which are part of your annual contract. And then your city administrator asked me if I would also give you just a brief look at the state of recycling. And if you need me to truncate this, we can quit right after changes in rates, and feel free to interrupt me when you need to interject a comment or question. So to begin with, your rates are going to go up, and this is written in your contract. In essence, we give you a 20% discount because instead of raising your rates at the price of the consumer price index, we raise it to 80% of the consumer price index. And we do that because we value our long-term contract with you, and we figure with your growth that this will all kind of equal out. As you can see, your rate without the tax is $22.43. Then you add the state tax, the utility tax, and that brings your total residential collection to $25.48. Sudbury is raising their rates 27 cents. Your CPI change, the average makes it about 65 cents. And so here is what it's going to look like in total with tax. Now this is all broken down, but if I go back here, you can see we've delineated where these increases are, and what the public usually wants to know is, what does that mean to me? And this is what it means. So your 96-gallon cart, one time per week, is $26.53. Your commercial 4-yard container is $3.42, and your industrial disposal fee per ton is $112.69. I would like to also point out, because I think all of us are looking at a little bit of sticker shock, that CPI is not a rate increase. This is our way of making sure that our dollars this year still have the same buying power that they had last year. So the producer price index, not to be considered with the consumer price index, but the producer price index is measuring inflation at 8.6% from November last year to November of this year, which means the dollar that we had to spend on wages and health care and equipment, that dollar is now only worth 91 cents this November. And that's why we do this CPI. And as I said, it's part of your contract. It's just kind of a pass through. It is worth noting, though, that your contract is split into two pieces. You have your service contract, which is where Basin, the people that pick up your garbage, you know, what it costs to run the trucks. That's one part. And we apply the CPI to that. Sudbury and other things like last year, you saw a B&O tax that came through. Those are direct pass-throughs, and we do not apply CPI to that. That is a straight pass through with no overhead added. So do you have any questions? Is there any discussion? What can I answer for you?
All right, let's take a look. Any council members? We're going to go through each of you for questions. If I pass you and you have a question afterwards, please let me know. All right, Councilmember Bobbitt.
Thank you, Rebecca. No question.
Okay. Councilmember Cleveland,
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Peterson.
Hey, Rebecca, Lauren, over the last couple cycles, there's been a discussion about, was a change in the methodology we had as far as the open, whatever you could fit in there, you could fit in there, and whatever you could put by the can, I think, which has worked well. Do you have any comments about how that's working? Mattresses, refrigerators, tires out there? And I think there were some concerns on how that had affected the overall change in tonnage for what you had picked up from before that change to current.
I cannot give you specific tonnage changes.
Yeah.
It has increased the amount of tons that you've brought in. I do know that. I just can't give you specifics.
That's fine. Yeah.
These rates, though, do reflect what we think, and it averages out. So, for instance, the person who puts out 6 garbage cans worth of stuff this week may not put out anything for the next 2 weeks. I would say that Derek has it very dialed into what the average consumer produces. So
yeah, so I'm guessing that the concerns that we may have had over the last 2 cycles have kind of flattened. Yes,
flattened
and
out.
That's maybe not a big concern anymore. Yeah. Okay. Great.
I do think that as we talk about recycling, you may see that there is a little bit of variation there.
Okay. Thank you, Rebecca.
You bet.
Councilmember Nijhagen.
Questions, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Selby.
No questions, thank you, Rebecca.
Councilmember Sherman.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Francis, I do have one question. Most often question that is presented to me are from people who live in single households. And they keep asking of why do they have to have this 96-gallon can when they are just a single household, and what can be done, or what options would they have to have a smaller can. In the past, I've understood that the reason a smaller can is not offered is because historically, when people get smaller cans, they overstuff them anyways, or they'll put more trash out. Does that still stand the reason of why we're not offering smaller cans at this time?
Well, we do offer smaller cans to people who are on low income or the elderly. But as you pointed out, what we find, especially when you have unlimited pickup, what we find is that if people pay for the smaller cans, they're still going to use over the average haul the same amount as a person with a 96-gallon can. And also, human nature being what it is, people might say, I'll get 36 or the 36-gallon, you get the 36-gallon, and then we'll share back and forth. It just really, if you want a system that works, you have to know what the basic cost is, and then we divide it fairly among all of your residents, and with special breaks for people that are disadvantaged.
Okay, understood. What age do you consider the senior age for discounts?
65.
65, okay. Okay, thank you. Any other?
And it's not simply age, it's also based on income.
Oh, income and age. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, got it, thank you. Any other questions regarding the disposal right now? Okay, I do not see any, Ms. Francis.
So let me just give you the option. I presented what's coming next to your UTC yesterday. I was hoping we'd have more time for discussion. I think maybe that will follow later. You do have a very packed agenda. Do you want me to talk about recycling, or do you want me just to skim over the top, or would you like to save that for another time?
Mike, Lisa, you have thoughts?
Miss Selby has her hand raised.
Oh, Oh, I could barely see it. It's in the sunset.
Sorry. I would recommend that I think the recycling presentation, if Ms. Franzik wouldn't mind coming back, would be really good for a workshop, because there are a lot of options and decisions. And so I think being able to explore it more thoroughly at a workshop before we make any decisions to move forward would be helpful.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Ms. Selby. So Ms. Franzik, if we could have that, we would love to have you back and get more digging deeper into recycling options. It is a big discussion within the city and our residents, so we would appreciate that.
Excellent. Thank you so very much for the opportunity to meet with you, and I look forward to future discussions with you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here.
Good night.
Have a good night. All right. So next is the Bird Scooter Memorandum of Understanding Renewal, and Mr. Rizzatello is going to present on that.
Hey, thank you. Garrett, who is with Bird, is joining us on the call, and I'll provide an overview, and then past that, he could provide the details. So as you all know, Bird has been operating in the city limits really for the past year. It's been very successful, especially as the students have come back to Walla Walla University. So there's actually a 2021 year in review, which I actually found very enlightening. That deals into essentially the number of rides, number of miles traveled, the whole thing. Basically just shy of 7,000 rides for the year, which is quite impressive. 13,000 miles traveled, and basically around 50 bird scooters. And you can see a map of where a lot of the rides have been centered, which is the College Avenue core, but it has sprawled out to other areas like Homestead, the area around Meadowbrook, our parks, areas like that. The initial agreement was for just this year. They are seeking a multi-year renewal. This was presented before the Utilities Advisory Board yesterday. They voted to recommend essentially renewing a memorandum of understanding. However, with some additional language mandating some education around parking the bird scooters near ADA facilities, and you'll see that in the red line document. With that, I will turn it over to Garrett. Garrett.
Thank you, Michael. And sorry I cannot join on video as I was kind of extended this invite last minute, but I'm excited to be back in front of you. I can't believe it's already been a year since I presented to you in bringing this new micromobility transient program to College Place. And as Michael outlined in the interview, it's been up and to the right and through the roof in terms of utilization. And not only that, like you guys as College Place have been an early mover, an early adapter, and helping communities around you bring a new micromobility transit program. I know we're in conversations with Walla Walla and Garrett moving forward. So within the next year, you should see more and more communities moving forward around you to expand that rider UI. But as Michael highlighted, operations day to day will stay the same as you see them with some new amendments. We know that we need to do a little bit better job when it comes to community education and rider education when it comes to where to park the bird scooters. I know we're going to do a better effort on connecting with the university, especially on preferred parking locations and making sure it is out of the pedestrian right away, and highlighting our community mode, which I know some of the council members did not even know was a resource to them. Community mode is a resource. If you do see a bird scooter that's maybe parked in the sidewalk or in an area where you don't want it to, all you have to do is take a picture of it. That creates an internal ticket for our bird team. We can then see who was associated associated with that parked bird who inappropriately parked it, reach out for an educational touch point. We can also assess fines and penalties for that rider if there are bad apples who continue to do it. But more importantly, it actually creates a response ticket to that local fleet manager, that College Place community member who's running the bird scooters, those day-to-day operations. And it's a trigger response where, well, they'll actually go and move that bird scooter and relocate it out of pedestrian right away and move it to an area that is reliable and a high demand area. So day-to-day operations will stay the same. So we are asking to extend the MOU for additional 2 years. Obviously, we are going to be laser focused on more community education on really the resources that are provided to College Place and more centered around where to park the bird scooter. So I know it's been a quick year. I can't believe I'm already back in front of you asking for a renewal, as it feels like yesterday I was just here and we were granting the operating agreement. So I didn't want to run through the same deck that I just did a short time ago, and kind of just wanted to open it up for any questions, concerns, words of wisdom, and kind of field it from that aspect of it.
Thank you, Garrett. We're going to go through council members for questions or comments. Mr. Bobbitt.
I've kind of enjoyed seeing the scooters around and all these, I usually see college students riding them.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the demographic of the university obviously flocks to them, no pun intended. But yeah, just making aware the community aware that, one, that birds are available for use. So when these college students come to campus, maybe, hey, you don't need a car because you have this form of transportation to get from point A to point B, from off campus to on campus as well. I know we did a little deep dive into the data with the committee as well. And a really high percentage of these rides are day-to-day commuters as well. And that's outside of the university as well. So we are seeing a larger demographic outside of the college university utilizing these bird scooters on a day-to-day aspect. Obviously, there still is that amenity of the community as well, and there are still joyridings going on, but we're really satisfied with seeing how many users are using these as a commuter transient program as well. So these same riders are using it from point A to point B every single day at the same time. So making sure that these are reliable and available for those users moving forward is something that we are super passionate about.
Thank you, guys.
Councilmember Cleveland.
Yeah, on occasion I've seen the bird scooters around. I see people use them. It looks pretty nice. On occasion, I'll see a scooter that's been parked that's either been tipped over or something messed with it. But I was curious, is there like a sensor in it that notifies when the bird scooter's been just kind of strewn about, or would someone have to take a picture in order to get some attention on that?
There is a tip meter built in within the bird scooter, so that does trigger a response for that local fleet manager to reposition that bird scooter. They do have 90 minutes to respond to that. Usually that bird is rented and rode or moved by a Good Samaritan upright. I know we had a lot of talk with the committee that they see college administrators, college workers moving them out of the pedestrian right away if they do see that. We do still encourage the community to utilize that bird community mode is what we call it. Just take a picture of it. Then, because we do reach out to that rider that was last associated with that bird, let them know that where they parked it was not acceptable and really correct behavior. Of course, this all goes back to rider education, but obviously we can layer on with our tech capabilities and assessing fines and penalties, but really it does go back to rider education in the community on where these should be parked. So obviously layering on with, one, the tip detection being our tech, two, the community mode, where if you do see it, just take a quick picture, reports it to us and that local fleet manager. And then we can kind of see problematic areas as we move forward. We are a data company at our core, so we do kind of take these points on, hey, we got bad parking at this location, at this location, at this location. So we can strategically place that fleet manager like, hey, these are problematic areas. let's strategically place these around these areas, or maybe let's place some parking areas where we can incentivize or recommend individuals to park around there.
Okay, Councilmember Peterson.
I think it's worked really well. I think it was it's kind of a different look to the city you get used to, but I think it's been fine. We're blessed with wide sidewalks on College Avenue. I mean, so and I've been surprised at how few times I've seen one laid over. Sometimes a windstorm or something. And unlike Seattle, they're not hanging from the power lines, which is a good look too for our city. So no, very impressed. I think somebody commented earlier, there's something about the smile on people's faces when they're out there riding them that is just there are some issues, I'm sure, minor issues around the edges, but I tell you, overall, it's just been a real positive feedback. Thank you.
And I really appreciate that. Obviously, this localized fleet manager aspect that allows us to operate in these smaller to mid-sized market, not just those large metropolitan cities such as Seattle. You can't compare apples to oranges. So obviously Seattle being a large metropolitan city, I know we are not there currently, but let's say even the LAs of the world where we have thousands of scooters, it's much easier to manage day-to-day a college place where there's only 50 scooters, getting multiple touch points on them, localizing those operations, incentivizing that local entrepreneur to put them into high demand areas. So we've seen a lot of success and really better rider behavior. So it speaks volumes of the community that is College Place, that we really haven't seen damaged birds or lost birds, and you guys do park them where you should. So really it goes back to the community feel, that you have that sense of community and you're accepting this new form of transportation, and obviously the utilization rate is there as well. So it's serving its need, and it's obviously it's not burning down the city as well, which we love to see.
Ms. Nyhagen.
I have no questions, but I just wish I had better legs so I could ride one. A bit younger.
Right, Ms. Selby.
I just have a couple of quick comments because I'm on the I can never remember the name of the committee, but I was there yesterday when we talked about this, and I agree with people who find this as a really good thing, because I think it's really important to give especially our students options so that they don't just have to have a car. And we did talk about amending the agreement slightly to talk about educating people on not parking with where ADA things are. Like I saw one day parked exactly across the ADA ramp, the wheelchair ramp. But then also, and I brought that up, and another committee member brought up parking like in front of doorways. And so I think maybe the red line would need to be changed to appropriate parking, including ADA, because ADA is not the only issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever the city wants to finalize, and we're willing to accept those red lines and kind of target those educational ads. Obviously, again, it all comes down to education, and this is a form of transportation. As you know, when you're in a car, there are still people who speed and park in illegal parking spots, and those are kind of the bad apples. And unfortunately, that kind of translates over to scooters as well. It is a form of transportation. Everyone's not going to follow the rules 100%, but all we can do is kind of hammer them with educational messaging and layer on our tech on top of that and make sure that we really facilitate a sense of community here. And obviously the implementation of recommended parking locations and getting with the university on kind of orientation and first year experience and letting them know exactly what BIRD is and the rules and regulations in the scooter etiquette. Hopefully we will see that kind of deter. But of course, again, I really want to put out that community mode because that hits our digital touch points and our data so we can see where those problematic areas are. And again, we can put it back to the source on who those riders are leaving those scooters in those areas.
Thank you. And more for the council and Ray, we also discussed right now, it says that they'll be fined as cycles for moving violations. But we also discussed that we may want to consider adding to our like our parking so that we could find people who repeatedly leave them in bad places. Obviously not tonight. That's something to look forward to in the future as a possible option.
Yeah, we have no problem passing back fines. Obviously, that's more beneficial to BIRD, but that is something that the community needs to decide on if we want to do that. Also, it does spread like wildfire. If a user does receive BIRD, they usually go to the internet to talk about BIRD and passing back fines. So we want to result or use that as a last case scenario and really just focus on rider education. But of course, if there are bad apples of the group, we have and we will pass back that fine to them. So that is definitely something we are able to do.
Okay. Our city attorney Caldwell has her hand raised.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just gonna let you guys know that I do have on my list to evaluate our current code as it relates to regulation of the BIRD scooters. So we'll get that before you to make a decision on the best way to do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Right. Ms. Sherman.
No questions, thanks.
Garrett, I do have two clarification questions. So when you talk about taking pictures with that community mode, is it via the BIRD app or how does that actually work? Because I can't imagine we just take a picture and it sends it.
Yes, so you do have to download the BIRD app, but this is free of use. So obviously when you use a BIRD scooter, there is a charge to it. Anyone is available to download the app and use that community mode. So if you do see a BIRD scooter parked in an inappropriate place, you can even report a rider driving erratically. So someone who's driving maybe on the wrong side of the road or just if you do see a college student just acting inappropriately, you can take a picture of them. Our tech aligns with the GPS. We can then see what a rider was associated with that BIRD at that time and then act appropriately. So community mode is a free resource for anyone who has the BIRD app. So really, again, we're gonna put some more effort behind educating the community about downloading the BIRD app and using this resource as a free tool to help build this program in a more sufficient way. Okay,
good. And then my second question is, I have noticed on community Facebook pages that our BIRD apps are advertised like for private events or private tours. Well, the BIRD app, I mean the BIRD scooters, let me clarify. I don't know necessarily if it's our BIRD scooters. So is there a conjoining program that's going on at the same time where we have additional BIRD scooters in the area that are being used for private tours or events?
No, that is very interesting to hear. And I would love to be exposed to that a little bit more. Obviously, that goes back to our day-to-day operations and that local fleet manager. But obviously, this is a public transient program. There should be no private service going on with them. So that's super interesting to hear about that is going around on Facebook.
Okay, well, we can talk about that later. I was just wondering if that was, digging into our the access for our community members, or if it was a whole
No, this
separate
should be
event.
available for anyone who's over the age of 18 and has the Bird app. So there should be no private events.
Okay, well, okay, Mr. Peterson has his hand raised.
I just want to make a comment that erratic riders may or may not be college students. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
I was thinking of that as well. All right. So is there any other questions or comments regarding the scooters? All right, Garrett, thank you so much for being here on such short notice. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for so much. And please let me know if you need any additional resources or any additional information for myself.
All right. You have a very good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So let's go on. Mr. Rickard and Mr. Dorn are going to present the Comprehensive Plan and Development Code update. It's been a
Good
long time
evening.
coming.
Good evening, Council. Yes, as you know, every year about this time, we bring you some updates. And it takes time to work through these changes with our Planning Commission. As you recall, this year, earlier in the year, the council adopted a moratorium on any redevelopment of manufactured or / mobile home parks in College Place, and directed the Planning Commission to study ways to preserve our manufactured home park communities. Through that process, we also received an application for a comprehensive plan amendment from Community Council. There's a Community Council Affordable Housing Task Force that made application to the city. Rachel Elfenbein, who's staff for Community Council, is their representative, and she's here this evening. And at some point, we will allow her to speak on behalf of her application and affordable housing in general. But we also have Greg Dorn with us tonight, who is our on-call planning consultant, who's with us. And so with that introduction, I think what I will do is go ahead and turn it over to Greg and let him lead the. Actually, before we do that, though, I will say that there's a lot of material attached to this, and there were a number of comment letters that we got through the public comment process, primarily from residents in Country Estates. And so they're in one exhibit, the public comment letters exhibit. We combined them for you so you wouldn't lose track of what document you had open on your computer. So please, if you haven't had a chance to read through those, please do take some time in the coming weeks before we bring this back to you for action to consider those comments from the public, because there will not be another public comment opportunity for the public. So that was held at the Planning Commission level. So it's very important that you get a chance to read those. And in addition to that, you can view the YouTube video. That's also, there's a link in this. So please, if you haven't already watched that, it's over an hour long, but Greg is he's an amazing speaker. He's really, engages you. So, so do please listen to that. There was some good conversation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Greg.
Great, thank you very much, and good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. And if I could maybe just correct for the record, I think what John meant to say was long-winded, but I will attempt to keep my comments brief this evening, but will certainly be available to answer any questions that you might have. There are 4 exhibits in particular that I want to draw your attention to that are in your packet. Now I'll describe each one of them and maybe highlight some of the provisions, but I won't go through them in detail unless you have specific questions. As John mentioned, affordable housing is a matter that is frequently described as a crisis in cities throughout the country. It is particularly acute in Walla Walla County, where the absence of affordable housing is one of the highest levels in the state. And in particular, there is concerns within the city of College Place about market forces which could present opportunities or incentives for property owners to convert mobile home and manufactured housing communities into other uses, which could put low-income families, individuals, elderly, and persons with disability at even greater risk of not being able to access safe and sanitary and affordable housing. So we have a number of factors at play right now. The first exhibit, Exhibit A, which is on the screen before you, and we've color coded some of the revisions. These are goals and policies in the city's comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan goals or policies are statements of what you as the city hope to accomplish and how you will accomplish that. And we have gone through in consultation with the Planning Commission and with the Community Council and have prepared a number of potential amendments to these goals and policies, focusing on strategies to preserve existing sources of affordable housing and adding, promoting the additional opportunities for affordable housing. And so in yellow are potential policy changes that were really initiated by city staff and the Planning Commission, and were based on our experiences in working with the county in recent years to review and update the urban growth area boundaries. One of the most significant factors in terms of the price / cost of housing is whether there is an adequate supply of land, because as land becomes scarce, prices go up. And so having an adequate supply of land that is suitable for development is one of the first tiers or strategies for making sure that there are affordable housing opportunities in the community. And in recent years, the city has experienced, as well as the city of Walla Walla, a degree of frustration in working with extremely outdated countywide planning policies and methodologies for determining what an appropriate size of an urban growth area would be. And so based on those frustrations and experiences, you'll see highlighted in yellow a number of amendments that would address that, or at least set in motion a process where the cities of College Place and Walla Walla, in consultation with the county, can make revisions to the countywide planning policies and over time increase the amount of land within the College Place urban growth area that's suitable for development as a specific step that could help the housing situation. The items in green are recommendations that came from a task force of the Community Council, and they are measures that are intended to specifically preserve mobile home and manufactured housing parks as a source of affordable housing in the community. There are a couple of parks in the city, And so there are a number of policies that, based on the research and experience of the community council, are intended to help maintain and preserve those housing opportunities and not lose them to the community. So that's what's highlighted in green and yellow. There are a few minor changes you'll note in the goals and policies. They tend to deal with things like matters that have already been accomplished, or excuse me, things that have been outdated. But the focus is on housing supply, affordable housing, and preserving and protecting manufactured homes and mobile home parks. So, Mayor, that is the first item, and I will pause here to see if you or the council have any questions about any of these proposed amendments, and then I'll go to the next item.
Sorry, I had to change my screen. Okay, are there any questions or comments right now for Mr. Dorn?
And council, as you're reading through these and kind of considering them, don't hesitate just to pull your pen out and write a comment in the margin and the like, and we'll be happy to respond at the next meeting. But are there any immediate questions?
Councilmember Cleveland, I had a question. At some point there was some discussion about like vacation rentals. I was kind of curious if how we'd been keeping tabs on that, and if that is affecting the current housing market to any significant degree at this time.
We've been monitoring that. We don't have a lot of the vacation rentals registered with us just yet, but anytime we are contacted by potential business owners of the nature, we're getting them registered. So it's a little too soon to say if it's impacting the affordable housing market just yet. But it is something that we'll continue to monitor.
Thanks.
Anything else? All right, Mr. Dorn, looks like you're ready to continue.
Thank you. Exhibit B, Mayor, is our amendments to the city's development regulations that have been recommended by the Planning Commission. And it specifically has to do with reestablishing the manufactured housing and mobile home park district as a part of the city's zoning code. And this is tied back directly to some of the policies that we just referenced, and based on the research conducted by the task force of the community council. There apparently is a trend nationwide where developers and investors are looking for manufactured home or mobile home parks and are making unsolicited offers to owners to buy them and then either raise the rents or potentially convert the parks to other uses. And knowing that there are at least 2 parks in the city that are an important source of affordable housing, the task force of the community council has recommended that the zoning district that is specifically for manufactured homes and mobile home parks be reestablished. So you'll see on the screen in front of you that that an amendment has been provided to the zoning code that reestablishes that zoning district and then reestablishes the standards that are used for we're on the policies right there. And if we can go to Exhibit B, then we can see the standards that would be applicable to these
Oh,
parks.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I pulled it away from the screen.
There you go. Thank you. So, yep. So we reestablished the zoning district. Then we reestablished the permitted uses. And then we reestablish the standards that guide mobile home parks. And all of this is an updating and reestablishment of what was in place in the past. And this is consistent with the recommendations of the task force. And the Planning Commission, in reviewing these, there was a desire to make sure that occupants or residents of mobile home parks and manufactured home parks are made aware of the potential that their park may be sold. And since they are leasing, the space, that's important to know if there could be a change in the status of the ground on which their mobile home or manufactured house is placed. And so there were a number of measures added to help make sure that residents have ample opportunity, or made aware of the potential changes, have an opportunity to potentially collaborate with others to buy the park, and would have adequate time and resources to relocate if they needed to. The Planning Commission, I think, very thoughtfully considered and discussed these measures. And there were some additional measures, and the commission said, I think this might be too far, but this is appropriate for the community. And so the Planning Commission did recommend that this last item I, which called for a specific relocation plan, they did not recommend that be included in the amendments to the city zoning code, but everything above that they did. And so you'll want to carefully consider, as you read the reinstatement of this zoning district, all these provisions. And we can certainly, at your next meeting, answer any questions that you might have. And certainly, and the community council can share their research that was the basis for this. But if you have any immediate questions tonight, I'll pause here to see if there's anything that you'd like to ask about before you have a chance to study it in more detail.
Councilmember Peterson has his hand raised.
Greg, I'm not sure I followed that there at the very end. I'm sorry, you said above what line? It was not included? I'm sorry.
Item I, the Planning Commission recommended not be included. So everything above that they recommended, but they did say that they felt that item I was I think maybe a step too far, and that the other measures would be a good place to start.
So the tapping of the brakes, or the slamming on the brakes of this, is the rezoning moving back, correct? To your comment about that somebody could actually still buy the property, correct?
Yes.
So I'm sorry. So how does this protect the owners?
It is, I mean, the ultimate protection is to own the land, and as private property, there are rights that go with it. But as you'll read these measures, you'll see that they emphasize things like advance notice, opportunities to make an offer to buy the park and maintain it collectively, and other measures. So it doesn't preclude the sale, but they are all measures intended to try to provide every opportunity to keep this as a source of affordable housing in the community. Strictly speaking, the ultimate guarantee would be for either the residents to own the park or for a public agency such as the Housing Authority or a nonprofit organization or to own it. And that would be the ultimate protection. But as you read through this, you will see that it's intended to try to within the context of the law, provide every opportunity to keep this source of affordable housing available in the community.
Mr. Dorn, can I just ask a clarification on that? So while the property may be sold, the new owner, while they may still be able to raise the rent, they must still continue using it as a manufactured home community. Is that correct?
Well, that's the intent is to, I say to do everything possible to keep it as such. But strictly speaking, if a party were to buy an existing mobile home park and they wanted to convert it to another use, they could do so as long as it fit within the zoning. And you'll see under the permitted uses there, if you scroll up, that the uses are intended to really emphasize this as a manufactured home and mobile home park. So it does everything I think we can within the law to try to preserve and protect it as an opportunity. And I think Rachel can also speak to this when she has an opportunity to address you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Dorn at this time?
So I'm sorry, I'm a little lost. I'm gonna have to read through this. So how did this change? Well, I understand the wording that it emphasizes mobile home park, people can buy the land if they want, and I you know that's a little tough to swallow. I think. But so what was the big change from a year ago? It's the zoning. Do you agree, or
yes?
What's the big takeaway here?
Yes, I mean there's several things, but that the zoning had been changed so that manufactured homes and mobile home parks was a permitted use in a multifamily zone, but there were then other uses that were permitted, such as apartments and the like. And so there was a concern that would make it very attractive to close it as a mobile home park and build apartments, for instance, and that could result in displacement. And it's not simply a matter of picking up a mobile home or a manufactured home and putting it someplace else. So the big change is to reinstate the zoning district to make the uses, focus the uses on manufactured homes and mobile home parks and retain that to the greatest extent possible. That's the big takeaway, I think.
Yeah. Thanks, Greg.
Mm-hmm. And John, if you would go to Exhibit D, if we would just jump out of sequence a bit here. With the zoning change, then there would be a change on the map to reinstate the manufactured home park zoning district at the two locations that are highlighted. So that would reinstate it. And so goals and policies, this is what we're trying to accomplish and how we're trying to accomplish it. Reinstate the zoning district to focus on preserving those two parks to the greatest extent possible, and then reestablishing them on the map. Those three pieces all travel together and make for a comprehensive package. item number Exhibit C we'll address in just a moment is completely separate from A, B, and D.
All right, just checking one more time to see if there's any additional questions or comments at this point. All right.
Exhibit C are housekeeping measures. And since we're going through the process and amendments, and there's notice requirements and environmental review and a number of things, it's appropriate to, it was timely to address some other things. These are in fact housekeeping. They're technical corrections or clarifications of the code, have to do with things like driveway placements on corner lots, who a qualified professional is, and clarifying some of the building code provisions that apply to townhouses. So technical measures that are important, but on a completely kind of different order of magnitude than the matters we were just discussing. So, but it is a part of your package. And so if you have any questions, we can certainly address those, but those all emerged from staff's experiences in administering the code over this past year, and questions or issues that popped up along the way. So like I said, I would just emphasize that this is a housekeeping matter. And I noticed, Mayor, that Rachel with the community council had raised her hands, and so it might be appropriate to allow her to jump in and provide a higher or more detailed description of some of the measures, and she can perhaps share some of the research that the community council conducted as well in support of these measures.
Absolutely. Ms. Elfenbein.
Good evening.
Good
Can you hear
evening.
me?
Welcome. Yes, ma'am. We sure can.
Okay, you can hear me. Thank you, Mayor Hernandez. Thank you, council members, for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. And I appreciate your review of our various proposals, both to the comprehensive plan and for the manufactured home park zoning. And I just wanted to start and give a brief explanation of why we submitted the proposals that we did and how they came about. Community Council is a regional nonprofit organization. We work with residents of Columbia County, Walla Walla County, and the Milton Free Water area on issues of regional significance. And the way that we do that is a study action model where community members collectively decide on what are the pressing issues that residents of our region are facing, and then they collectively decide how they want to act on those issues. Community members participated in a 6-month-long study in 2018 and 2019. I believe Mayor Hernandez took part. I believe John Rickard took part, and also Mike Rizzatello took part in the study. And anyone from the community is welcome to take part in our studies. And this study in 2018 and 2019 was on affordable housing. And that study produced 28 recommendations for change to improve issues related to affordable housing in our region. And my job as the advocacy coordinator is to work with community members on advocating for the implementation of those recommendations from the study report. And like I said, those recommendations came from community members. They came from the community. So what we're doing is working to have those recommendations from community members be implemented. And one of the key things that the affordable housing study found is that the easiest way to support affordable housing is to preserve the homes that already exist. The study also found that manufactured homes and manufactured home parks are a really important form of affordable housing, especially because they're unsubsidized. So the residents in those parks receive no government subsidies to live in those parks. And oftentimes residents who live in manufactured home parks are living on low incomes or fixed incomes. And in the case of College Place, both manufactured home parks in the city house primarily senior citizens. They are 55 plus parks, but I think the majority of the residents in both parks are actually senior citizens who aren't subsidized to live there. And so we've been working on one of the recommendations from the study, which is on the preservation of the importance of preserving manufactured home parks. And like I said, we found that this was very important to work on because they're a vital source of unsubsidized affordable housing. We did a survey of manufactured home parks in our region and found that there were basically next to no vacant lots in all the manufactured home parks in our region. So if a park were to close or to be redeveloped, just one in our region, there would be no park to absorb the residents elsewhere in the region if they had to move. And what we learned through our research, what we've done is we've reached out to different stakeholders, both in Oregon and Washington, working at local and statewide levels to understand what are the policies that can be used to preserve manufactured homes and manufactured home parks. And so we did this research over several months and wrote together a research report on what we learned and what other communities have done to preserve manufactured home parks. And we learned that manufactured home park zoning is a very important tool that local communities can use to preserve manufactured home parks. The reason why we've proposed other uses within the manufactured home park zoning is because these are uses that are complementary to residents, like a laundromat, for example, or a recreation facility. Things that actually make a neighborhood more livable, a nicer place to live, and things that folks need and enjoy in their neighborhoods. And it's not uses that would take over the primary use of the manufactured or mobile home park, but it's things that complement, like a convenience grocery that you see there, or a daycare center, or a coffee shop, things that really make the community a nice place to live. But there is the concern, because there have been communities across the United States, as Greg explained, that someone might buy a manufactured home park with the intent of redeveloping it, because we're seeing this happen all over the United States and in the Pacific Northwest as well. And we know that this is vital, affordable housing, especially for our seniors. And so we feel that it's necessary to preserve the use of the park, the primary use, which is for manufactured homes, for vital, affordable housing for seniors in College Place. So this is why we proposed the reinstatement of the manufactured home park zoning and have been working with manufactured home park residents around this. So I hope that answers your question about the other uses in the zoning, Mayor Hernandez. I also wanted to briefly explain the opportunity to purchase, which Greg started explaining. So this is actually a tool that has been used in other communities in Washington State. And in fact, the whole state of Oregon has an opportunity to purchase for manufactured home park residents. So this has been a tool that's been used in other communities and in other states throughout the United States for a while. And it's been very successful. They've been very successful in Oregon because it has been enabled by state law. What we do have across the United States are organizations that are called that are affiliates of a national organization called ROC USA, which stands for Resident Owned Communities USA. And we have an affiliate here in Washington State called ROC Northwest. And what they do is it's a nonprofit organization that works with residents of manufactured home parks should they want to make an offer to buy the park and run the park cooperatively as a cooperative nonprofit organization. And one of the key reasons why residents do want to do that is because that can help to keep their lot rent low enough that they can still continue to afford to live there. Because one of the concerns too is with what's been happening across the United States and in Washington State as well, is sometimes big investors come and buy up manufactured home parks from what have essentially been kind of local mom and pop owners of manufactured home parks, and they buy them up, and they might not want to redevelop the parks, but they also raise the rent substantially so that the parks no longer are affordable for the residents. So this is giving the residents kind of a protected time period in which to organize to collectively make an offer on the park in order to continue to keep the park affordable for them, or to work, like Greg said, with a local nonprofit organization, for example, like BMAC, Blue Mountain Action Council, which does do regional affordable housing work in regional affordable housing development, or work with Walla Walla Housing Authority, for example, which all have the mission of providing affordable housing in order to keep the homes in the park affordable. So this is actually language that had been negotiated between the statewide association representing the manufactured homeowners and the statewide association representing the manufactured home park owners. And this language was actually brought to the state legislature two legislative sessions ago, and it passed the state house, but did not make it to the floor for a vote in the state senate. So it is language that has been negotiated between lawyers representing both sides. And like I said, it's also based on the experiences of other communities and other states that actually have opportunity to purchase legislation. And so that's the reason for the opportunity to purchase legislation. Ultimately, it's about protecting and preserving the homes and keeping them affordable in the park. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that council members may have about both what we've proposed in terms of amending the comprehensive plan and about the manufactured home park zoning. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, I'm gonna check with council members to see if there's any question. Actually, Mr. Dorn, did you still have more of your presentation to go? Okay, all right, let's go through council members though, then. Council member Bobbitt.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cleveland.
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Peterson.
Oh, thank you for that clarification. That helped.
Ms. Nyhagen.
No questions. I live in a mobile home park and you're going to have quite an outburst if something goes wrong. You
Ms.
know me.
Ms. Selby.
My question is, at what point are we expecting to act on this?
This would come back to the council on the 23rd.
Okay.
For Thanksgiving.
Because I have to admit, I have not gone through this in detail yet, and I need to do it before then. So thank you. And thank you both for all of you, all three, I guess I should say, for all the hard work on this. This is a big lift. So I appreciate everything that you've done to make this come together.
If Mayor, if I could just maybe add a fourth, the Planning Commission really spent some quite a bit of time and very thoughtful consideration and deliberation. So we would be remiss in not recognizing their role and involvement in forming these recommendations.
Ms. Sherman.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, as mentioned, there are a number of additional documents to this topic and number of letters from concerned citizens. So please do take some time to read those to see if you have any further thoughts based on communications from residents or community members. How long have they been working on this? I don't know, since March, maybe? John, do you remember?
I would say as a commission on the city side since March with this topic at community council. Geez, it's been going on the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, okay. So a lot of very thorough thoughts have been put into this and research. So I'm sure it's been a lot of work for everybody. So I too thank everybody for your time and your thoughtfulness. And for your contribution, Community Council's contribution, Ms. Offenbein. Thank you for taking the time to make sure that they were part of this as well. All right, before we end, And before we end
I
this,
just wanted to say you're welcome, Mayor Hernandez. And if council members do have the time, I would really encourage them to watch the video of the Planning Commission meeting. We were fortunate enough to have Ishbel Dickens provide public comment as well. And she's a lawyer who's been working with manufactured homeowners across the state and across the country for several decades. And so it's a real resource and has offered herself as well as a resource to answer questions to the city of College Place around manufactured home park zoning and how to do it and the importance of manufactured home park zoning. So thank you very much again, Mayor Hernandez.
okay, thank you. Please do watch that video then, because we will be voting on this at the 23rd again. Is that what date? It's at the 23rd. So we do not have much more time to look it over. So if there's any questions ahead of time, please make sure you send your questions to John or Greg. That way they can at least start to try to answer some of the questions before the council meeting happens. Any last questions or comments before we close this topic? All right. Thank you, Greg. Appreciate your input, and you're always smiling with us. So thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you, Rachel. Have a good night. Okay, so next, moving on, is public hearings, which we do not have any public hearings tonight. So the next is our one action item regarding the 2022 property tax levy, and Mr. Carlton gets to present on that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We bring to you tonight to take action on our proposed 22 property tax levy. I'll bring up the presentation. I'll just share my screen. So this can everybody see that?
I do not see it.
All right, something didn't work. Here we go.
There we go. All right, we're good.
Okay, this was presented in the public hearing at the last council meeting. The same presentation. We are just asking for council to take action on our proposed increase. You can see based on the county's assessed value of all the property in College Place as of for 2022, they are anticipating a regular valuation of $894 million worth of property value, with new construction estimated at $12 million. Those are the numbers that drive the property tax increase for next year. That total is 906, just over 906,000 or $906 million worth of valuation. The prior year was at $752 million. That is a $155 million increase in assessed value, a 20.6% increase. So although you'll see in future slides that our rate is going down, really for most, if your assessment goes up, you're going to be paying higher property taxes. The maximum levy lid we're allowed by state RCW is 1% increase in the annual amount. And that's not in the rate, that is in the fixed dollar amount of property taxes that we charge. The levy in 2021 was $1,529,000. That's the amount of revenue the city received from our property taxes. We're proposing a 1% increase that would take it up by just over $15,000. That's our 1% increase for 2022, not a substantial amount. Of the components of that, there's the new construction value The increase in the property taxes results in increase in $24,000, close to $25,000 in property taxes based on new construction. And that new construction value is a determination done by the county. As far as the levy calculation, you can see with the 1% increase and the new construction amount, we're anticipating revenues of just under $1.6 million in property taxes next year. Resulting per $1,000, that levy rate would be 1.73 per $1,000 of assessed value. And you can see in the prior year, it was well over $2 at $2.06. So based on the amount of increase we're allowed to take and a close to 21% increase in assessment, you can see our levy rate has gone down considerably. In addition to the standard levy rate, we do have a bond that was issued that we're paying on. That the valuation is a little bit different than the regular levy in that the seniors amounts are deducted out of the levy valuation. We have a payment due next year of $487,000. That results in a per $1,000 of assessed value, a cost of 55 cents per $1,000. So combining those two factors together, you can see that if we do not do the increase, our per $1,000 rate would be $2.26, and with the 1%, it's $2.28. So just a 2-cent difference per $1,000 of an assessed value. Here's the combined levy compared to last year. You can see that there is a 45% reduction. If we don't put a 1% in, there is a 44-cent reduction with the 1% increase in our total levy dollar calculation. And you can see our anticipated revenue for next year is just over $2 million.
Brian, I'm sorry, can you go back to the slide before this one?
This one?
Yes. Okay. I think I heard it backwards. So with the 1%, it's $2.26, and without the 1%, it's $2.27. So it costs more without the 1%.
Oh, do I have that backwards? I just have to think about it a moment. Oh, I've got to check my numbers. Yes, I agree. That doesn't quite make sense. And I don't have my numbers in front of me.
Okay.
Just go back the screen. I think I have those backwards.
Okay, that would make sense.
I apologize for that. Yeah, without the 1%, it's definitely going to be a lower levy rate.
Sure.
Yeah, it's minor amounts. Yeah.
Yeah, you were talking cents, so that's fine. Thank you. I just want to make sure I was reading that correctly or incorrectly.
Yeah, and you can see the numbers here are the correct numbers. You can see the combined and then the combined plus the 1%. So I just had those flip backwards on the last screen.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
It's the same number. But you can see it's a $15,000 difference, for the entire city in our anticipated increase for next year. So not a huge amount. And here's the detail of the assessed valuations for the last 10 years, last 11 years. And you can see that huge increase in the assessed valuation for next year at 21%. And again, you can see the value of the new construction anticipated for 2022. County's anticipating a pretty similar construction activity volume next year as this year. And this, again, I presented this last time. You can see of our 270, we get 2.72 cents of every dollar on your property tax comes back to the city. And you can see the various components of the amounts that we're getting and are also shared by the county, the different entities. So that's it for the presentation. Do you have any questions?
Councilmember Peterson has his hand raised.
Yeah. So this may be a question for Mike more than anything. So Mike, some cities pass on this. Is it just so they can say they passed on it?
I'll give you my candid answer. Yes. It's political grandstanding, and why I raised my hand, which I'll now elaborate on since it ties to the exact same point, is that I'm on the finance committee for community council, and we were looking at what they're paying their staff. And I just want to call this into the picture because it directly ties in. So the inflation last month, the CPIW for our area was 5.4%. The highest we can raise this to is 1%. So your CPIW is 5.4%. So the split between 1% and 5.4% is pretty significant, and that's just the market for you. So, I mean, if we were in a low inflationary time, I would say there would actually be a decision point there. But I think that's very disingenuous when your CPIW month to month is essentially racquetballing between 4, 6, 5%, and yet you have a 1%. I mean, to me, if that's the value of where it's going, that's what the market's saying. So that's just my 2 cents on the issue.
No, I was trying to be somewhat humorous there. You know, on the back of an envelope calculation here, and Brian, don't check my math because it's going to be horrible, but I come out that it's probably per person in College Place, it's like 16 cents a month, I think is what, I don't know, some, you know. But
yeah, don't forget, you'll also have, if you have an increased assessment, that's going to potentially increase your own amount. If your assessment doesn't go up, then you have a marginal increase in the property tax. But if your assessment doubles, you're going to have a larger increase. But it would increase regardless of if we increased our levy rate.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments from the council members? All right, I do not see that we have any questions or comments at this time. Do we have a motion on this resolution? Anybody want to make a motion?
The 2022 levy resolution number 21-052.
Second, Peterson.
Okay. Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The motion is passed.
Thank you.
I do recommend that we do some very strong public education on this, including that wonderful graphic of the dollar bill breaking down where the taxes go and the assessment value, so that our community members understand the numbers a little bit better.
Yeah, for one thing, we do include that dollar in the budget brief.
Okay.
And we'll have an additional communication is,
Yeah.
We'll coordinate that with Mike.
Yeah, please, let's do it. I want to make sure that we help them understand as much as possible.
Yeah, they have a budget brief flyer. How that works is typically once the budget gets passed, that gets mailed out to everyone as part of the utility newsletter, so they will see it.
Great. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, so let's move on to administrative reports. We have several of them, starting with the draft of the fiscal year 2022 state and federal legislative agenda by Mr. Rizzatello.
Okay, well, you've seen this before, so this will be going for the foreign action item next meeting, but this is just our legislative agenda, both to state and federal. The only change on it that I feel that I need to highlight is under the project priorities. We did add in Southwest College Place specifically. The new park that eventually we would like to see to get going down there when the development occurs. And then also Southwest Majanier. Now, reason put Southwest Majanier in there is because that project was requested in the federal infrastructure bill. The initial proposal was something like around 3 trillion. What was adopted by Congress, signed by a president, was around 1.3 trillion. So what ends up happening with that is that means that there's a significant haircut in the amount of money available for capital out of that federal bill and earmark projects. Now, I've asked the congressional staff, what does that mean for the 2 earmark projects? Because the 2 projects I know that were in there was Southwest Majanier in the highway bill element, and then the wastewater treatment plant in the general capital bill element. They have notified me that there would be more concrete answers after Thanksgiving. So at that point, we should know where we stand. However, I think just with the basic math of the situation with Southwest Majanier, that leads me to believe there will be a funding gap there. So that's why that has been reintroduced to the legislative agenda. So maybe we could either get Transportation Improvement Board or some other state agency dollars to fill in the gap. I have no idea what the gap will be because that'll be contingent on whatever was in the bill that just passed. That essentially backfilled everything. So I will keep you posted as we become aware of what the actual earmark project appropriations were. But beyond that, everything else from a policy perspective is as it stands in the earlier iterations I went over with you all the past several meetings.
All right. Let's go through council members for one last time of questions on this topic. Mr. Bobbitt?
No questions at this time. Thank you, Mike.
Mr. Cleveland?
No questions.
Mr. Peterson?
No questions.
Ms. Nyhagen?
Questions, thank you.
Ms. Selby?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Sherman?
No questions, thanks.
All right. All right. Thank you, Mike. Let's see, we're going to move on to the next item is the, oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Mayor updates to the city nuisance code. I was reading that wrong. Updates to the city's nuisance code and establishment of code enforcement chapter. And Ms. Colwell report on that.
Yes, and Lisa, if you could click on Exhibit B, I'm going to talk about that first. Mike introduced this at the last meeting. I apologize, I wasn't available to meet with you guys. This is a second version of that, what was originally given to you with just some cleanup with the feedback from those who enforce our codes. Basically what this is a standalone code enforcement provision, which we don't have presently in our code, which a lot of municipalities do have. And what it will do, hopefully, will streamline the process of code enforcement. It will provide a process for code enforcement for sections that don't necessarily spell out how those codes are enforced. And it will also, if passed, provide for a vehicle for future code that's in place to enforce those codes. And mainly what we're talking about for the most part is a nuisance code, but this can apply to other code enforcement. It streamlines the process, hopefully. I've met with Ron Nordman and he is excited about it. And before we move on to the next one, which is the nuisance code, if anyone has any questions about this standalone code enforcement, I'd be happy to answer those now.
Any council members with questions or comments at this point?
That's pretty straightforward. Great. Okay, so Lisa, if you could open D. So this is kind of the meat of our regulations when it comes to nuisances. And I think we all know that nuisance regulation is kind of near and dear to every council member's heart and just living in the community. And this doesn't significantly change what we've already traditionally labeled as nuisances. It clarifies it, it simplifies it, kind of puts it into categories so that when someone says, my neighbor's dog is barking, they can go to it and say, okay, what can I do about it? And so between now and our next presentation, unless you have questions today, I just ask you guys to look through it quickly. If you think of complaints that you've received from your constituents, or you have a complaint about something that's happening in your community, to see if it's covered. And also look through here to see if there's anything that you think, hey, you know, that seems a little draconian. I'm not sure we want that. Email me directly and I'll work with you and work on it, and then bring any changes that are suggested to the next meeting, which I'm going to ask for action on this. There also might be some small changes. I'm meeting with Scott, who does our stop work orders and things like that, just to make sure that what we have here is reflective of what we are actually doing, because I think we do a relatively good job, at least as far as I can tell, on code enforcement. So any questions? I will mention one thing is we do define Class A nuisances and Class B nuisances, but I haven't actually identified what those are because I'd like to meet with Troy, Scott, and David to say, okay, what are these Class A nuisances, like an open well on a property or a fire burning that shouldn't be burning, things that we think the city can step in and take action right away without going through any notice or court procedure. So we'll have those identified by the next meeting. So any questions, concerns, comments?
Okay, I'm gonna quickly go through council. Oh, somebody gonna say something?
Oh, no, I'll wait.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Bobbitt,
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Cleveland,
No questions, thanks.
Mr. Peterson, any questions or comments?
Yeah. If I say no, that would be kind of funny, wouldn't it? Hey, read down on Y. I think it's Y. Offensive sounds and whatnot. What is your thinking on the determinant of the measuring of that, or the definition of excessive, or you know what I'm saying? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. You'll see on 11 that there is actually administrative code that has a maximum sound level. And so I would say that's where we would start. And one thing we could do, because we say excessively loud sound. What the heck does that mean? If we're having a concert or whatever, excessively repetitive sound. I mean, I guess we could kind of see what that is. It really is a catch-all. But if that's something we want to narrow, we can narrow that down. We do at the bottom, number 13, any violate. Oh, I take that back. 12, any obnoxious offensive sound is determined by the code enforcement officer. That's also kind of a catch-all.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, if we think of complaints, and I've asked about this, so it's when like the university is having an event in the evening, a special event, we might get complaints about that. A repetitive sound might be an animal. I think we have that in there as well. But if a dog continually barks for hours and hours and that type
or Lincoln Park from 1999 played it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a hard line. I mean, it's a difficult thing to do because we want to be specific enough so the public is aware of what they can and can't do. But we don't want to be so specific that we leave out something that we want to keep in. So
or we box ourselves in. Yeah, right.
Correct. Correct.
All right. Thank you.
We will ask you if we get a complaint, whether it's excessive.
Yeah, all right. The king of sound. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So Ms. Nyhagen.
Questions. Thank you very much, Rhea.
Ms. Selby.
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Sherman.
No question, thanks.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Caldwell. We appreciate that. And that's going to be coming up to vote the 23rd as well? Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you.
Okay.
And again, if anyone has any concerns about something that we've missed, just shoot me an email. Thanks.
All right. So we'll make sure we look over that as well. All right. Next, Mr. McAndrews is going to talk about street lighting.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for being here this evening. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of discuss street lighting in the city. We, as you all know, I've been here not too long with the city, and I've kind of realized that it seems street lighting hasn't necessarily been a priority, with some exceptions, intersections. And as we've been moving forward with projects, we've obviously added lighting. But somewhat recently, some concerns were brought up about safety concerns, primarily kind of revolving around speeding. But as we looked into those, we realized some of those areas were also areas that were excessively dark or might be considered excessively dark. And as you can see, I think Mike was kind enough to add some pictures that he took, primarily of the Larch corridor. But so, yeah, so as we looked into the safety concerns, noticed these dark areas, I reached out to Pacific Power to get some quotes to add some lighting. They came back a little higher than I expected, but it seemed reasonable. But all of that to say, we haven't historically budgeted for additions to street lighting. So I kind of want to feel council out on their take on it and what priorities are. Some of the main concerns that we saw initially were the Larch corridor and C Street. And so yeah, I guess I'm kind of interested in what council's thoughts are on moving forward with kind of prioritizing some lighting upgrades and figuring out where to install lighting into the future.
All right, so then I'll give council members each an opportunity to share your thoughts and your opinions. Mr. Bobbitt?
Well, at this point, I don't personally run into too dark of spots. I mean, there are areas, it seems like there always are, but I don't know. No real questions right now. Thank you.
Mr. Cleveland?
It seems like some time a while back, I remember some talk about putting some lighting in on Rose Street. Am I misremembering that, or is that something that's going on?
So with Rose Street, that one, we are gonna file a grant for, so that would be under the Transportation Improvement Board Complete Streets program. So we're gonna be wrapping up the 4 Bikes project, which will add the lighting on 4th from College to Academy Way. Once we get that off the books, then we can get the next grant, which would be to add ped lights on Rose Street along the multi-use path from Ash over to roughly Cary Court area, because that is pitch black over there at night. So I mean, those are 2 areas where we've been getting the complaints from a variety of sources has tended to center around Larch from about 3rd down to Lions Park, and then C Street from the Lambert area, Maple area, all the way out to where Goodwill and Home Depot's at, because there isn't lights on that section at all, even at the intersections.
I thought I'd recognize some of those dark pictures. Mr. Peterson.
Robert, I think, I think this 6 lights for 6,700, it's probably a good first start, right? I think I support that. That's not an excessive amount of money. And we'll see what that looks like, I guess, if you were to head out with that and
sure,
and take it from there, then I think that's is my suggestion. But anyway, I support it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Nyhagen?
No comments, thank you.
Ms. Selby?
Robert, you heard my comments yesterday. I will just summarize briefly for the council members. I think this is a really great start, and I really would like us to continue this, because if we're going to be a more active community in the Blue Zones project, we're going to need lighting because it is so dark so early, so much of the year. But we also need to think about making sure that the lights are only shining where we want them to, because last time we got a lot of complaints about shining into people's windows, and we also have observatories around here. But these newer lights can be targeted much better. So with that, I really support this.
Thank you.
Ms. Sherman?
I'm also in support. I like to walk, and Larch Street is very, very dark, which I don't mind when I'm walking until a car is coming straight at me. Then I can't see anything in front of me. So no, ever since I moved back, I realized how dark our streets are. So I'm in favor of it. I agree with Lauren that to just start with these 6 and see how that goes and keep a plan going to keep them coming. That'd be awesome.
Sounds good.
And Robert, my 2 cents is I think we should be very active in this. I think we really need to light it up, especially with the speeding that's been going on. And as we get more traffic in our roads and neighborhoods, I think lighting is going to be an important part of keeping our citizens safe.
Thank you, Mayor.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you checking on that and bringing that to us. Any other questions or comments for Robert before we let him go? All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Robert.
You don't have to go. You've been here this long, Robert. You might as
I
well.
know. I'll probably stick around. Thanks.
I was going to say, I don't know how they got you put last, but.
It's all right.
All right. So then really the last thing here is going to be Ms. Nyso discussing the Lodging Tax Advisory Commission funding recommendation.
Hi, so yes, every year, as you know, since we now collect lodging tax funds, We don't get a whole lot, but we are starting to get more each year. We do a request for proposals towards the end of August of each year. And this year we received 2 requests for proposal, one from Fort Walla Walla Museum for operating costs and staffing and programming, and one from the City of College Place for our Freedom Festival. The Lodging Tax Commission met and reviewed them and had discussions, and they all recommend approval of both requests in the amount that was requested. If there is any questions, I can hopefully answer.
Rather than going through our council members, I'm just going to ask if there's any questions right now.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for presenting that. They look good to me. And basically, we're just deciding how to disperse the lodging tax funds. Am I correct?
Correct. They're only eligible to be used for tourism promotion or tourism activities. So there's very limited use that it can be for. And then the Lodging Tax Commission reviews and makes the recommendation, and council then has final say on it, and then it will move forward. I'll ask for action on it at the next meeting, and then Mr. Carlton will put it in the budget.
Does anybody want to ask Lisa where we get lodging tax money from?
Verbo.
We do have, Walla Walla University has some guest rooms that we get income from, and then there are vacation rental properties.
Oh.
Hopefully someday we will have hotels, or at least one hotel, multiple hotels anyway. Hopefully then we'll start getting some good lodging funds and really being able to do some really exciting things, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Ms. Colwell, you have your hand raised.
I do, but it's not about this. I just wanted to say something before we all go away.
Okay. All right. So any other questions on the lodging tax? All right, Lisa, thank you. I think we'll be ready for it when it's on the agenda for voting.
Thanks.
All right, there are several informational reports in the packets for you to review. So there's a lot of review of this meeting before our next meeting. So please do so when you have an opportunity. There's no executive session. So before we go to closing items, Ms. Colwell, you are up.
Thank you. So I have a jury trial scheduled for November 19th, and we've been kind of trying to figure out where we're going to hold these because of COVID, and there have been some trials held at the fairgrounds. And so I was told we're going to have it at the fairgrounds. Well, then I just found out tonight that the fairgrounds were broken into and all the equipment was stolen. And so we're not, the county anticipates that will be 3 months before that is replaced. And I don't know what's going to happen with the trial. It's an old case, but we've been putting it off because of COVID. So I just thought you guys might want to know, we pay the county for those facilities, and that's what's going on. So.
Yikes. Okay, Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, real quick, I just wanted to, I'm going to be out of town for the next council meeting. I just, not that that matters that much, but just want to make sure we have if there's anyone else leaving, to see if we have a quorum or not. We maybe want to start looking at that with that around Thanksgiving, if there will be people out of town. So anyway.
So I believe Miss Nyhagen's going to be out of town. Is anyone else other than Ms. Nyhagen and Councilmember Peterson going to be unavailable?
I should be available. I am traveling back from Everett that day. And, you know, we plan to go much earlier in the day and get back mid-afternoon, but there is a slight possibility that I may not be able to. Although my son will be driving, so I suppose I could join in by my phone.
Okay, that would be great because we do have a number of things we need to vote on.
And I could join by phone too if it's an emergency, so we can communicate back and forth on that. So yeah, I mean, if the
Okay.
of course, so yeah, okay, thanks.
All right, great, thank you. Okay, is there any other business for good of the order?
Really quickly, everybody, please on Thursday, thank a veteran. Please thank
Amen.
your veterans. Thank you.
And speaking of that, there will be a Veterans Day Parade in downtown Walla Walla at 11:11, I believe is the time it was going to start. So if you have an opportunity, please do go out there and show some love to our veterans and our parade participants.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Thank you, Marge.
Yes.
Thanks for your
you.
service.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Semper Fi. Thank you.
Hoorah.
Yeah.
All right.
think
So,
Robert's wearing camouflage.
oh yeah. I see it
Yeah.
there.
What'd she say?
I'm not a veteran though.
I think he's more of a hunter.
Not yet.
Oh. All right, we're getting a little testy. It's 9 o'clock. So let's see, if there's no other business, is there a motion to
And move
adjourn?
we adjourn.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. So if there's no objection, the meeting is adjourned at 9:01. Good night, everybody.